More dramatic testimony today from the ex-girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs in his sex trafficking trial. Cassie Ventura was back on the stand being cross-examined by the defense, who questioned her on everything from her allegations that Combs abused her to graphic details about those so-called freak-offs. Joining me now is Neama Rahmani, a former federal prosecutor who has been closely following this week's developments. There is a lot to get to. Neama, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course, Michelle. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So this is the fourth day of testimony from star witness Cassie Ventura. What are your key takeaways so far?
Well, this is probably the most important day of testimony because it may be her last. And really, the takeaway, it comes from cross-examination and how well she's holding up. And it's been a little bit of a mixed bag. She testified on direct that she was coerced and forced to participate in the freak-offs. Now, her emails and text messages, they tell a different story. This is a Cassie who's using words of affirmation and saying that she loves and wants to and wishes to participate in the freak-offs. Now, I believe her. I'm a victim's lawyer. And this is part of the psychology of abuse, but there are a lot of people, including maybe some of the potential jurors, that are asking themselves, well, why did she stay in the relationship? And why is what she's saying in writing very different from her saying that she wanted nothing to do with any of these sex-filled orgies?
Now, you said this could be her last day on the stand, but that's not so clear because in a letter to the judge overnight, federal prosecutors said defense lawyers for Combs are trying to prolong their cross-examination of Cassie Ventura into next week, hoping to risk a mistrial if she goes into labor. How much of a strategy do you think that is, and how much do you think it's at play here?
This is part and parcel of the legal strategy and the gamesmanship in any case, and the lawyers are playing chess here. So obviously Cassie Ventura is very pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant, and one of the reasons the prosecution wanted to get her on first or almost first is because she may go into labor and she may be unavailable. But from the defense's perspective, this is the government's star witness. They were together for more than a decade. It was her bombshell lawsuit in November 2023 that really started this whole thing, and then civil lawsuits followed and the criminal investigation. So they're arguing, look, my client's life is on the line. I can't just let this person go without finishing that cross-examination.
But at what point would the judge step in and say, you know, you're revisiting some of the same topics that we've covered already?
Well, the defense is going very slow, methodically through these emails and text messages, and Judge Subramanian is really trying to move this along. Judges have a lot of discretion to control their courtroom in this manner. So if the judge says, we're done, that's going to be it. Now, maybe it's an argument the defense can use on appeal if Combs is convicted, but they're not going to be able to keep Cassie on longer than the judge wants.
Now, RICO cases are notoriously difficult to prove. First, break down for our viewers what's required, and do you think the prosecution is on the right path in proving that?
I do. RICO is generally used for criminal organizations like the mob, street gangs, drug cartels. You don't typically see them in these types of cases, although we saw it in the R. Kelly case and NXIVM, another sex cult case. So prosecutors are using it. Here's what you need to prove RICO. First, you need a criminal enterprise, and you don't need a rigid organization. It can be a loose association of two or more people. And Diddy's entourage, that qualifies for a criminal enterprise. Then you need a pattern of racketeering activity. And again, for that, you don't need a whole lot. You need 2 or more RICO predicate acts within a 10-year period. So what are those acts? We're talking about sex trafficking, which has been charged, bribery, extortion when it comes to the videos, prostitution. So some of the things that are being discussed are RICO predicate acts. As long as the government can prove 2 of those within that period, they establish RICO. And the important thing about RICO it brings a lot of people and a lot of evidence into the case that may otherwise not come in. And of course, it carries a potential life sentence.
All right, let's look ahead now to next week. Who do you expect to take the stand and have more explosive testimony?
So what we're going to see next week are more victims. What the government wants to do here is put on people that weren't in a loving relationship with Combs, that don't have those emails and text messages, but are going to tell the same story of physical and sexual violence. They're going to say that I was trafficked, I was sexually assaulted. And sometimes jurors may have a tough time believing the testimony of one witness. Someone like Cassie, who was in a long-term relationship, they may think, you know what, this is a disgruntled ex. She has an axe to grind. Not saying I believe it, but some people may feel that way. But if victim after victim is telling the same story, Michelle, when the jurors go back in that deliberation room, it's going to be very hard for them to disbelieve everyone. So the government wants to overwhelm the defense with the sheer number of victims.
Former Federal Prosecutor Neama Rahmani, we hope to have you back again. We know this case is expected to stretch for about 8 weeks. Thank you so much today.
Of course, would love to be back.